From time immemorial, monkeys have been tamed, used, caged, and even massacred by their closest relation, man. But Buddha, who wanted to meet all the animals of creation when he awakened, gave the monkey pride of place in the astrological calendar. Every monkey is associated with one of the three primal elements: fire, earth, and water. Monkeys born under the sign of water have rounded shapes. They are lithe, patient, calm, and indolent, and their life drifts by like a stream. Several monkeys from Southeast Asia have water signs. One of them is the Pongo pygmaeus, which lives in the rainforests of Borneo. It is the only large monkey in Asia, and today one of the best-known primates in the world. The Indonesians, who deeply respect this animal, quite simply call it the orangutan, the man of the woods. Every morning, the man of the woods leaves his feeding and rest trees and descends into the surrounding marshland to cool off, drink, and wash. Orangutans stand out in a crowd. Adult males particularly have amazing all-black faces, larynx pouches under their chins, and odd protuberances on their cheeks, facial discs, which appear when they become adult. Apparently, they really pull the girls. The most beautiful Indonesian nature park, Tanjung Puting, is very dense, very green, absolutely unique and very difficult to penetrate due to the sublime chaos of rivers flowing through the palm groves and banyan trees. The forest is too wet to explore on foot. So we took a dugout canoe to follow two scientists looking for another primate, the proboscis monkey or nose ape. Proboscis monkeys really enjoy this amphibious universe. The magnificent marshland of Borneo is probably its only habitat anywhere on Earth. Every day, at the end of the afternoon, the monkeys leave the depths of the forest and climb into the huge trees along the riverbank, where they sleep. Mummy proboscis monkey utters a short piercing scream, what scientists call a proximity scream, to keep in contact with the rest of the family. Like other monkeys, proboscis monkeys use their afternoon siestas to take care of their personal hygiene, a delicate operation which consists in removing parasites from the fur of other tribe members. Parasite removal is, of course, a fundamental rule of hygiene, but it is also a social action, a type of solidarity which strengthens group bonding. Turn by turn, the monkey being groomed becomes the groomer. Monkeys only feel safe in treetops. There they sit, peacefully in a virtually human position. Usually they do not spend much time on the ground. They know that down there, creepers make walking difficult and that their main predator, leopards, are lurking under the trees. Unlike the female, which has a slightly turned-up, pointed nose, male proboscis monkeys are a combination of Tarzan and Cyrano de Bergerac. Twice as heavy as the females, they have huge pendulous, boneless noses which do not seem to serve any useful biological purpose at all. In fact, the wonder nose gets in the way when they eat and has to be pushed aside. Basically, proboscis monkeys eat protein-rich shoots and young leaves, but they also enjoy some fruit seeds and succulent caterpillars. Their stomachs are very odd, more like those of ruminants like cows, and they can digest leaves much more easily than most primates. They use their stomachs as bags to store large quantities of leaves, which they then regurgitate as required. This keeps them safe in dangerous picking sites, as they can run for their favorite trees whenever threatened by leopards and chew the cud in peace. Proboscis monkeys have two other predators, man and crocodiles. For a long time, the natives of Borneo hunted them for their skin, reputed to have medicinal properties. Apparently, many crocodiles also believed that proboscis monkey hearts were the best remedy for their diseases too. Fact or fable, crocodiles, which abound in the region, really enjoy eating monkeys. They lay ambushes for them hidden in the reed beds. But proboscis monkeys are not only very cautious, but they're excellent swimmers too. They've developed an extremely effective strategy for crossing rivers with the least possible risk. They begin by observing the ripples on the surface of the water attentively, and then all dive in together, creating sufficient confusion to deceive the enemy. As the banks are flooded most of the year, our crew members have to stand up in water up to their thighs to film the monkeys living on these sandbanks. So as not to frighten them, we camouflaged the cameras in floating hides and then sat down to wait. In the forests of Borneo, afternoon rests are sometimes disturbed by a curious noise that scientists call the kiss squeak. This is the noise orangutans make when feeling anxious. Young orangutans who have recently left their mothers are brimful of energy. They climb ropes, turn cartwheels, push each other around and nibble at each other. They even punch each other quite hard. In monkey country, games and grooming are the most important social events. Games are also a very important part of the learning process and preparation for life as an adult. Forest monkeys play, but in some ways they are wiser than people living in cities. Monkeys know where to go to pick fruit season by season. They recognize different shades of green and distinguish different kinds of noise made by the water, the lapping of ripples, the battering of typhoon rainstorms, and the patter of drops from the bamboo. City dwellers have forgotten just how precious forests are. Much of Indonesia lives with and around water, an extremely vulnerable universe which is disappearing as the trees have felled. This monkey, leaping from branch to branch, is the crested leaf monkey. It lives in the mangroves of Borneo and on Java, another island in the archipelago. They will do anything to eat the food they prefer. Jump over a cliff, walk on palm frond tight ropes, and plunge from a tree branch diving board. Java leaf monkeys are extremely light, under 8 kilos in weight. In fact, although these monkeys seem to munch their way through the day, they are actually rather choosy about their food. In the old Java plantations, they only condescend to eat the central ribs of teak tree leaves. They eat flowers, fruit, and especially very tender young leaves which they devour as quickly as possible, perhaps because they're worried they will disappear. As these foodstuffs do not supply enough energy, leaf monkeys have to snack between meals. Looking for food is an extremely time-consuming all-day occupation, which doesn't leave much room for developing social relationships with other leaf monkeys. Java leaf monkeys are recognizable by their odd hairstyle, like a crown or a wig over their heads, and by the glossy black fur that Asian astrology associates with water. This fur only grows after 4 or 6 months. Baby monkey's fur is orange. Leaf monkeys are treated with a lot of respect by people in Java who call them the lutang. If you believe tradition, they are the descendants of Lutang Kasaron, a black monkey who became a prince. Unless, of course, it was the other way round. Because on this island, which is full of stories of spectres and apparitions, these black monkeys are also thought to be ghosts. They are shaped like animals during the day, but return as human beings on some very specific nights. Phantoms or not, leaf monkeys are good omens sacred to the Javanese. Only the Jukan, Pruwangan and other wizards fully understand their powers. Orangutans from Borneo are even more solitary than Java leaf monkeys. Adult males particularly lead a hermitic life in the kingdom of the trees. They don't even mix socially. And if they meet another male intent on entering their territory, a fight often breaks out and ends with deep wounds to the forehead. Females are much less intolerant. They're also less solitary. They have their first baby at about the age of 14, which remains by their side until a small brother or a small sister arrives. During this time, the infants learn to use their hands to tap, touch, tear and twist, all the manipulations which will help them survive on their own in the huge Tanjung Puting forest. Adult males wounded in fights often dispel their anger by violently shaking branches. Nowadays, we know exactly what the man of the woods eats. In the morning, he prefers juicy, sugary fruit like figs, mangoes and lychees, which he picks in the 600 species of trees in Tanjung Puting. There is everything he wants. This fruit comprises 2/3 of his food intake. In the afternoon, he moves on to more solid fare like bark and nuts, which he scrapes and crushes easily in his powerful jaws. You have to be extremely patient and ingenious to observe orangutans in their private lives. If old males will allow you to approach them quite closely without overreacting, this is not true of the females who find it more difficult to accept the presence of human beings. To observe their daily activities, like picking fruit or building sleeping nests, we had to perch with our cameras in the treetops, just like them. Baby orangutans like to grip their mother's belly or sides. Even as tiny infants, they know how to grip onto the fur. At the beginning, they seem to prefer the belly, but this position is not very comfortable and hampers mother orangutan's movements. At around 3 months, they discover an alternative, the left side. And a little later, will opt for another place, the back. In that position, they look in the same direction as mum when moving. Another monkey shares the territory of the orangutan, the gibbon, easily recognizable with white eyebrows, very specific vocal exercises, and an extremely smooth motion. Gibbons spend most of their time in the trees. They're as much at home there as a fish in water. They swing from branch to branch with their strong arms. This type of motion is called brachiation. Hanging from the strongest shoots, they pick up their food with one hand and move forward with the other to slide along trunks for speed through the thick leaves on the top of the trees. Their technique is extremely gracious and well practiced. Gibbons are dedicated vegetarians. They only eat fruit which they choose extremely carefully. Unlike most monkeys which basically eat green fruit, gibbons like ripe, pulpy Borneo forest fruit rich in vitamins and energy. They pick them extremely delicately between their thumbs and index fingers and never damage unripe berries. No traffic jams in sight, no tailbacks. Today, traveling is easy. The people who live in Borneo, who have made their island an enchanted world peopled with gods and legendary creatures, say that gibbons are the good spirits of the forest, and that they have the power to influence the destiny of people. If they have such an exalted place in Indonesian imaginations, it is that they are so similar to men. They can stand upright extremely straight and do not have tails. Their faces are expressive too. Orangutans are not as lithe as gibbons. They weigh around 90 kilograms and stand 1.40 meters high, which make them the largest fruit-eating tree dwellers on the planet. While the parents use their powerful arms to tear off the bark from branches for stocking up on insects, termites and mushrooms, children have fun hanging upside down or gripping their mother's back firmly. In the forest of Borneo, evening rain is often a downpour. But orangutans are not caught out. They know how to keep dry in showers by covering their heads and shoulders with any umbrellas that come to hand. Scientists say that chimpanzees manipulate tools better than orangutans, but they seem to be able to do everything they need to with branches and bits of wood, like Boy Scouts. They even pole jump wide streams. The men of the woods sleep about 12 hours from 6 in the evening to 6 in the morning. As they rarely sleep 2 nights in the same tree, they have to start preparing a new sleeping nest as soon as night falls. They make their nest quite quickly. It's true that orangutans really know what they're doing and that forests are their universe. They begin by choosing an extremely strong fork. Then they select thick branches, break them, and lay them down to form a sleeping platform which they cover with soft, leafy fronds. Soon the little man of the woods falls asleep, but the magicians are waiting and steal his spirit while he is slumbering. Balinese dancers, who are magicians in their own right, bring the monkey people to life to repel the forces of evil, and particularly Barong, the dragon. The only being able to brave the obstacles and pacify the dragon is the orangutan. An eminent strategist and wily diplomat, he is in fact extremely clever at many things, like all monkeys born under the sign of water. Whatever the difficulties, he always falls on his feet. Clowns, disguised as macaque monkeys, implore the protection of the king of the forest. After a few intimidating stances, the orangutan restores harmony and the monkey kingdom continues to sleep in peace. As this young orangutan awakes, the time for fairy tales is over. The men of the cities have changed and have become a serious threat to the monkeys. Opening up roads and clearings, cutting down trees and the undergrowth, making new fields in the marshlands and burning the woodlands have led to the wholesale destruction of the primeval forest of Borneo. Over the years, the monkeys have seen their habitat shrink like a sponge squeezed dry. This process is particularly catastrophic as no other place in the world contains such a diversity of flora and fauna. Now we leave the marshy lands of the peninsula for another island country, Japan. In samurai country, landscapes are dominated by the mountains. Sacred mountains covered with a white mantle of snow wait for the cherry trees to flower again. There, in the depths of the forest, live the gods of water, the driving forces of nature. This is the habitat of the famous Japanese macaque monkey, the most northerly monkey on the planet. The monkeys are excited by the film shoot. They come out whatever the temperature, extremely low at this time of year, even if their paws sink into the snow as they walk. Curious, they peer at the man and his camera. Northern monkeys are not fierce, in fact they're so tame they visit people's houses. At an altitude of 1500 meters, the temperature gets down to -20 degrees Celsius. Luckily, in this volcanic region, there are many warm springs which surface at over 43 degrees Celsius on the Shiga Plateau and the flanks of Mount Hakusan. The villagers collect the hot water in small stone basins to heat their homes and thaw the roads. One day, a young monkey decided to dive into a basin of water to warm himself up. Now the whole monkey colony comes to laze the day away in comfort. Scientists who specialize in the behavior patterns and abilities of primates are extremely interested in this phenomenon, as it shows the amazing ability of monkeys to adapt to their environment. Monkeys use the springs to warm up, wash and groom. As you see them like this, with their heads surrounded by a halo of frost, it's easy to imagine the misogi, the scrupulous ablutions by which the Japanese purify themselves for seasonal rites. In the traditional calendar, winter is called the season of water. At the most, Japanese monkeys only weigh 3 or 4 kilograms. Their grey and tawny fur is much more abundant than other macaque monkeys, essential for survival in this rigorous climate. only females have the privilege of seeing their babies' small pink faces turn bright red at the age of 4. Japanese macaques have very short tails. This was not always the case. If you believed the legend, their tails used to be much longer. In fact, so long that they used to use them as fishing rods. But one very cold winter's day, the stream suddenly froze and their tails were caught in the ice. The monkeys pulled with all their strength and their tails tore off. Since that time, it's said, Japanese monkeys have red faces, as their ancestors had huffed and puffed so much trying to pull their tails out of the ice. During the long snow-filled months, food is very rare and limited to a few leaves, twigs, and meager pieces of bark. This fiber-based diet is difficult to digest and not rich enough to enable macaques to survive the cold. Before the end of autumn, they have to build up reserves of fruit, grain, and seeds for the coming winter. For many years, monkeys were central to Japanese civilization. They were venerated because they incarnated wisdom and detachment, and also as messengers to the gods. Monkey tamers used to get them to dance and do good omen tricks to bring good fortune and make springs run from the earth. Only monkeys could restore the moon's brightness when it was covered by cloud. Only monkeys could make it rain treasure from heaven, strengthen the young crops in the fields, ensure plentiful harvests and bring joy and happiness to mankind, and sacks of rice for everyone for 1,000 autumns and 1,000 years. During a rough ramble through the snow-filled forest, we discovered the mountain trees where, every evening after leaving the hot springs of the Shiga Plateau, the monkeys go to sleep, safe from predators. Scientists have observed that the monkeys have two kinds of sleep patterns. Before midnight, they drowse rather than sleep, scattered apart in the trees and nibble the bark from time to time. After midnight, they huddle together to keep themselves warm. They don't really build nests, but come together as small groups of 4 or 5 monkeys. And then we had another surprise. Our vehicle had disappeared in a deep snowdrift. Had the monkeys played one of their roguish tricks on us? It took the film crew several hours to find the car in a 4-meter thick snowdrift. Change of direction. Our adventure in monkey country now took us to the extreme south of Japan, an extremely fertile region with a subtropical climate. Scientists have been observing the lifestyle of another colony of macaque monkeys there since 1950. The colony is in a tiny island partially covered with forest called Monkey Island in the Kyushu archipelago. Southern macaques have a much easier life than their cousins in the north. Temperatures down here are very mild. Today there is a light breeze, but that doesn't stop them having a beach party, spending all day lazing in the sun and splashing in the waves. Macaque monkeys usually live in clans of 30 to 40 in an extremely well-defined hierarchical structure. Their society is matriarchal. Females stay in the group in which they are born, whereas the males leave the group when they are 4 and live on the outskirts. Adult males are guardians of tradition, resisting innovation like true samurais. This behavior has been observed many times. For example, whenever young macaques develop new techniques for cleaning corn seeds, eating fish, or washing sweet potatoes. The technique called washing sweet potatoes dates back to the beginning of the 1950s. An 18-month female had noticed, quite by chance, that it was easier to get rid of sticky sand on the outside of sweet potatoes if they were dipped in a stream. Very quickly, all the members of the group imitated her invention. But what was even more surprising was that the scientists were studying the behavior of monkeys in 2 very different islands and communicating with each other by radio. They had the idea of depositing sweet potatoes on the sand to see if the monkeys would wash them before eating them. In both the islands, 90 kilometers apart, the scientists observed the same phenomenon. The whole colony set off for the stream apart from one monkey which galloped down to the sea clutching a sweet potato. An instant later, he was joined by the other members of the group who discovered that sweet potatoes dipped in seawater are extremely tasty. These days, the macaque monkeys in the Kyushu Islands and those in the hot streams are protected, but most other monkeys are not. Many are the victims of mankind as, despite our good intentions, we use them for all kinds of experiments. Monkeys are sometimes used to amuse the public as they can be taught all sorts of pirouettes, acrobatics, as well as to smoke cigarettes, dress up as cowboys, walk on stilts and ride bicycles. But bike riding is comparatively enjoyable, particularly if you know you're going to get a good bath once you've finished. And as everything in the world of man has a price, you have to work very hard to merit preferential treatment. But in Japan, this is not a new phenomenon. Since the 16th century, tamers have been training monkeys to make these animals as knowledgeable and wise as it is possible to be. Circus acts are nothing to the experiments research laboratories run on monkeys all the time. Trapped and shipped, often in atrocious conditions, imprisoned in tiny cages, connected up to cameras and electrodes, they are forced to take part in interminable tests designed to measure their cerebral functions and skills. But what is the purpose of inflicting these tests today? Anyone who has seen monkeys in their natural habitat knows how skillful and clever they are, able to adapt to their environment, eat balanced diets, and live in peace in their small colonies. And as if electric shocks were not enough, monkeys are used in clinical trials too. Many laboratories continue to import and breed monkeys with the single purpose of removing their vital organs or inoculating them with infectious diseases. Every year, in industrialized countries, thousands of animals are used to test new drugs. In fact, the fate of monkeys hasn't really changed over the years since they were sculpted for one of Bali's 13,000 temples. They are still imprisoned. After being hunted for their fur and their flesh, after being exploited as unpaid labor, they are now the victims of barbaric and inhuman sciences which sacrifice them to supply mankind with often meaningless remedies for very marginal diseases. Perhaps mankind's greatest challenge today is to conserve this huge laboratory we have inherited from our ancestors. All these forests, savannas and islands where monkeys roam free, whether they be born under the signs of earth, fire or water. Conserving and protecting their last sanctuaries is the major challenge of this millennium.